In the most recent chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, one of Yuji's new abilities got recently heavily explained thanks to Sukuna himself, that being Yuji's soul punches, which is an incredibly overpowered ability, which I've seen a lot of people be confused on how this functions, whether if Yuji's had this technique and not all the time, if this is even a curse technique, etc. And today I want to answer all of these questions, as well as why these soul punches are the key to destroying Sukuna once and for all. I'm Eternal Flame, and let's get straight into this. Hey you! Yeah, I'm here to hook you up with some really good anime merch and merch for comic book lovers. Now, do you love Jujutsu Kaisen, Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Marvel, DC, and all of the above, and do you have your own nerd stuff that you're into? Well, I got some good stuff for you today, as our friends at Fandominion are here to hook you up because they got the best merch. If you've been around here for a while, you'll know that they've been with our channel for a long time. So you can take it from me that they got good merch and they will hook you up with the highest quality merch. After all, I really recommend them. They got some really good merch, and I'm gonna hook you all up with something special. If you use the code TEF, really simple, really easy to remember, made it simple for all y'all, you get a 10% discount. Yeah, that's right, a 10% discount for all the merch you could possibly buy. And I guarantee you, you'll be happy with whatever you get. So, you guys make some money, I'll give you a discount, I make some money, we all get happy. Hope you all enjoy, and let's continue on with the rest of the video. Remember to check out Fandomian. Link in the description down below, as well as our code. Now, before I answer any of these questions, I'm actually going to explain what the soul punches is using what has been established in the most recent chapter directly from Sukuna's internal dialogue, where Sukuna directly says it's the same logic behind his effective attacks against the patch-faced cursed spirit. He can sense it, he's aiming directly for the barrier between my soul and Fushiguro Megami's. He's rousing Fushiguro Megami's soul that was submerged by the bath and disrupting the harmony between this body and myself. Every time I take a blow from this brat, my cursed energy output falls and my control of this body weakens. So effectively, to explain what Yuji is currently doing is, with each of his punches, he's disrupting the connection between Sukuna's soul and Megami's body. As a result of that, he is waking up Megami's soul more and more by also tearing away at the barrier that was created through the bath between Megami's soul and Sukuna's soul. By tearing away and weakening at the harmony between the soul of Sukuna and the body of Megami Fushiguro, he's weakening Sukuna's cursed energy output directly, as well as his control of the body itself. We've actually seen something before happen like this similar in the past. Back in chapter 215, when Megami was directly fighting back against Sukuna's soul in order to get control of the body and the soul themselves were not in harmony, resulting in Sukuna's cursed energy output having to fall as a result of that because they were fighting back against each other. Which that is the purpose of the bath, to submerge Megami's soul so deep within that Megami's soul won't have a chance to fight back and Megami's bodies will only listen to directly Sukuna's soul. Furthermore, with information that we got directly from last chapter, we know it is very much possible for Yuji to basically punch a soul out of a body directly stated by Sukuna, that he directly says the brat in his soul-seizing punches he'll come trying to tear me from Fushiguro Megami's body. Now up first, there are a few questions I feel the need to answer, which the first and most important question of them all is, how effective would this be on people who aren't considered Sukuna and not a vessel? And in my opinion, I actually think this would be extremely effective on people who aren't vessels at all. After all, like we found out last week, Yuji is able to tear souls away from bodies directly, which is incredibly powerful because it's been well established that the soul needs a body directly to exist, and it's been that way for a long while. So if Yuji is able to tear the souls out of other people, then this will be incredibly powerful, like I talked about in last week's video. However, there's another reason why this is even more powerful, which is the effect of weakening the harmony between the body and the soul directly, and as a result of that, weakening the cursed energy output of an opponent. Effectively, we know this is possible to pull off on one soul because of the fact Yuji can pull this technique off on Kusakabe, just that the intended effect wasn't actually soul swapping, as I've called out several times, that Yuji tells himself to get a grip on it, which means likely originally his soul ended up flying as well out of his body and going into the other person's body, but I don't think that's the case anymore considering what we see now. But now when it comes to disrupting the soul and body harmony, rather than attacking the barrier like he's doing with Sukuna in order to wake up Megami's soul, it would be a matter of attacking another person's soul entirely and by extension disrupting the soul then. Although I do want to say I think this would be less effective on people not named Sukuna because of the fact that Sukuna is in a body that's directly fighting back against him the more and more the soul begins to wake up. However, I still think this is effective on other people. On top of that, it likely is equalized out by the fact that if it's strong enough to be effective on Sukuna, of all people, then it's likely going to be able to affect most people really, really well and weaken their outputs incredibly. So basically, in my opinion, I do actually think this is going to be effective on other people not named Sukuna, whether it's because of the fact of how it's described to work, or the fact that we know Yuji was testing it on Kusakabe, someone who only has one soul, and it's not like he was just testing it on Kashimo or Angel, because I doubt Angel would be able to, because Angel can't fight anymore, and Kashimo probably just wouldn't let him. However, I can very easily see this is what Kusakabe was training with Yuji directly. After all, Kusakabe is directly aware of what Yuji was training to do before the 1 month time skip even happened. On top of that, we also know directly that weakening a soul can weaken the output on some certain things, through Mahito directly. When Mahito's soul was at a weaker percentage, stated to be at around 40% soul HP, he wouldn't be able to transfigure Todo in just one touch, as he directly himself states. And with Sukuna basically saying that Yuji is doing the same thing he did against Mahito against Sukuna, but he's doing it much more targeted rather than just attacking the soul in general subconsciously like he was doing against Mahito, I do actually think Mahito not being able to one-shot Todo is an output thing with the current knowledge we have now about how Yuji's new soul-seizing punches work. About how basically Yuji's new soul-seizing punches are just much more targeted versions of what Yuji was doing in order to directly hurt Mahito. Furthermore, like I said in the last video, this is also a much more potent version of soul manipulation than what Mahito has access to as well, considering the fact he is able to affect Sukuna's soul at all, when Mahito wasn't even able to get close, and by trying to affect Sukuna's soul, he was cowering away and decided never to use Idol Transfiguration on Yuji again out of complete and absolute fear. Now up next, I'm going to talk about the possibility of this being a curse technique, or if this is Yuji's curse technique, or if this is just something anyone with a good amount of soul knowledge and soul manipulation is capable of doing, and what my actual opinion on this. Now, in my own opinion, my current answer is it is probably not a curse technique, but we don't know enough. The reason why I don't believe this is a curse technique is because Yuji only seems to have access to this ability after he read the soul book directly, and the fact that Sukuna says that this is basically the same principle of what Yuji was doing against Mahito, which Mahito had described before, that the reason Yuji was capable of doing this was because of the fact that Yuji was a vessel and had possessed a second soul within his body. So it's very likely Yuji has memories of how he was able to do it, and he's just applying that same principle with the knowledge of the soul book, which allows him to now consciously do it instead. And now some of you guys might be wondering, okay, why didn't they give this move to Gojo then? This has to be one of Yuji's curse techniques. And this could have one of two reasons for why. Number one, Gojo doesn't actually have the best access to soul viewing in comparison to Yuji, because when we see Gojo directly look at Yuji's soul, he actually has to get really close and personal to tell if Sukuna could be suppressed by Yuji or not. He can't just see it normally. Furthermore, it might just straight up be possible that Yuji just has straight up better soul control than Gojo does, which also wouldn't surprise me considering Gojo is not the end-all be-all in all forms of skill, so this being the skill that Yuji surpasses Gojo in would make a lot of sense. On top of the fact that Yuji constantly had two souls in him for a long while, so he was able to become very accustomed to and be aware of his own soul, which Gojo would not have that experience, only having his eyes to rely on. However, it's also just straight up possible this is Yuji's curse technique, but I don't think there's much evidence for this being Yuji's curse technique if I'm being completely honest, but I'm not going to say this is completely impossible that this is Yuji's curse technique. But there's only really two pieces of evidence that I can really think of, which is Yuji's I am you speech that he directly says to Mahito, and that's actually more literal than metaphorical than in that moment, as well as the fact that Yuji is the only one who's been capable of doing this, but that could also just be because Yuji just has that much awareness of the soul to begin with. However, if this is Yuji's curse technique, I don't think I'll exactly mind either, because this is a pretty strong curse technique, as I've directly explained why I think it's incredibly strong. It also just very fitting for Yuji, and would serve as really good payoff for all the build-up that was the Mahito arc completely. But at the same time, it's also just very possible that Yuji just straight up learned how to do this through the Soul Book, and just created this technique using the Soul Book and the principles he had learned directly from his battle against Mahito, which is what I think is being implied to be the case directly now. Now, to answer another question that I put at the beginning of this video, to answer if Yuji has always had access to this technique, the simple answer is yesn't. Yuji had always had access to this technique when he directly fought against Mahito. He was using it, it's just Yuji is now using a much more pinpoint and precise version. Now he has much grander awareness of the soul to begin with. Now this technique is one that was completely developed in order to take out Sukuna, so it's going to be very crucial to beating him, as it's the only way to directly free Megami as well as weaken Sukuna's output to such a drastic point that the characters can survive for this long. Through the 1 month time skip, they were able to create an incredible counter directly against Sukuna, and now they are able to use this in order to help the others survive by weakening Sukuna's output further and further, and the more and more punches that Yuji directly lands on Sukuna, the weaker and weaker he is going to get, which is going to allow for more ground to be gained directly by Yuta and Yuji in their battle against Sukuna. Overall, this is an incredibly powerful technique and an incredibly potent one, especially against Sukuna and other vessels, but it's still pretty good against most people in general. And I'm going to be honest, there is a slight part of me that is kind of hoping it's a curse technique, because then we get to see a domain expansion of this, and it would actually be a pretty strong domain expansion, I'm not going to lie. However, this is complete speculation at the current moment, and I want to hear what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Do you guys think this only works to counter Sukuna, or do you guys think this can work on other people too? Do you think this is going to be more effective on other people due to them not having the same level of soul strength that Sukuna has, and that's the only reason why Sukuna has survived for this long? Or do you guys think that it's because of the fact Sukuna is a vessel with a body that directly fights against him that this is only effective against Sukuna? I want to know what all y'all think in the comment section down below. I hope y'all have a good day. Peace out, everybody.